Welcome, listeners. Today we are joined by Susie Kundrat, a registered dietitian, professor, and wellness expert who's on a mission to help people reclaim their joy and reconnect with themselves through food, movement, and mental wellness. Her book, Eat, Move, Groove, which unlocks the simple steps to lifelong nutrition, is inspiring people across the country. And today, she's here to inspire you. So let's jump in. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Angela.
And I'm Claire, your companions on the journey to a successful and vibrant life.
We are here to debunk those media health myths and break through mental blocks that we all face.
Let's fuel your life with nourishing conversations to a healthier you. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Special guest today.
Yes, I'm so excited to announce we have Susie Kundrat on here. And Susie, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Ang and Claire, for having me here and having me here this morning with you. I am sort of in transition in my career space. I'm a registered dietitian, but I've been working in sports nutrition and wellness and prevention, health promotion, my whole career as a dietitian, about coming on 40 years pretty soon. So a while, and transitioned into the company I have now called Eat, Move, Groove, which is simply really trying to take the nutrition piece, the movement or fitness piece, and the personal wellness and personal support piece and put them all together. And over the years, I found, primarily in my work as a registered dietitian, I've gotten to work with a lot of college athletes, professional athletes, cardiac rehab. I've been teaching students for about the last 25 years at various universities. And I feel like we sort of miss that piece of how nutrition and what we eat and how we move also connects so much to how we feel and our brain health, our mental well-being, our soul. And so I really stopped what I was doing with my full-time teaching a couple of years ago at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee to step back and write this book that had been in my brain and in my heart for some time, trying to find a way to combine and collaborate with those three pieces: eating, moving, and personal well-being. And the interesting thing that's come out about that is that even though I'm a dietitian and I've always been into fitness and exercise and eating well, the piece that has become the big part of my life and the area that I feel needs more attention, and what others are telling me as we go around the country on our wellness tour, is the groove. And a big part of that groove is what I've found is gratitude, is stepping back and reflecting, is connecting. In fact, my wife and I have together been on this tour all fall in the East Coast and in the Southwest and West Coast this past spring. And as we got home to Illinois a couple days ago, actually, we were saying, people are asking us, what is the best part of your trips and your tours? We've been in a camper van. It's been a dream. It's been crazy. It's been so fun. And we've had probably 80 or 90 programs. We've met people from all over. And we say the biggest part is really the connection piece. Mm-hmm. And that connection piece goes hand in hand with our gratefulness or the gratitude to be able to meet so many wonderful people and hopefully make a positive impact as we go around and talk about the book and the program and the concept of giving that groove piece, and particularly that gratitude piece, just as much energy and time and, peace in your life as the exercise and the eating. And I think that's a concept I've learned as we've been on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that shifts to the perspective, of how to approach the other ones, right? Because it is all encompassing.
Right.
And, you mentioned your journey through your travels and touring.
Yes.
But prior to that, what was the passion behind how you discovered gratitude making a positive impact on your life?
I think part of it is, I mean, through the years, I've, taken part in different gratitude practices. One of my former graduate students from the University of Illinois, Mindy Meering, who's in Durango, not too far from you guys, she's worked as a social worker, but done a lot of work in her own gratitude practice. And in fact, I think we'll link maybe to the blog on my website that Mindy wrote all about gratitude. So I think she was one of the first people I was in contact with, a decade or two ago, who was actually setting up gratitude practice programs. And I went through a series of workshops with her to really think about the power of gratitude. And in fact, when I go around and work with people wherever we are, if I'm working with college students or if I'm doing work, corporate keynote speaking, it doesn't really matter where I am. I try to bring in a piece of that gratitude. For example, something like the 5-finger gratitude practice, which a lot of people, it's very simple to do. It's saying, maybe when you go to bed at night or when you get up in the morning, you take your hand and you think of one thing you're grateful for on each finger, and you run through that for about a minute. What I encourage people to do is put their hand on their heart so they can be mindful of their own heartbeat as they do it. And it's amazing the benefit to just take that time to have that thankfulness and that gratitude. And also, I think in our busy worlds, we don't take time to reflect. Mm-hmm. And also when we're trying to go forward, which, when you write a book, that's kind of how it is. It's like this big train that you're doing this, and then you add this, and you add this, and you add this. And I self-published so I could learn the whole process of everything too. So there was a lot to it. But stepping back and taking those moments to be grateful, not only do we feel good about that, but it gives us a chance to reflect about the people and the things in our lives that have helped us get where we are. And those things are very important to take time to do. And so I first, started going through some of that work with my former student, Mindy, who has done a lot of work in that area, and then reaching out to try to learn more. As I was writing the book, like I said, these 3 parts, the nutrition piece came pretty easy because I've been teaching nutrition, most of my career, as well as exercise. And I have a lot of colleagues who are exercise physiologists and fitness experts that I leaned on to help me with the pieces that I wasn't the expert with. But the groove part was really all new to me, because everything from being involved in community to being aware of your breathing, to being in nature. I have 22 ways to get your groove on in the book. And all those things, including really a focus on gratitude, were, like I said, probably not things that I had focused on as much as I realized needs to have a bigger place in my life. So I was aware of gratitude and the power of gratitude. But then when I got into researching it more, learning more, talking to people for the book, it really popped out as such a key area for overall well-being.
I will say it's crazy. I do a lot of health coaching, and one of the action steps sometimes that people come into the call and all they have is all of these negative things, right, that are going on. Like they just feel like so much is happening to them. But sometimes I'll let them sit back and say, okay, let's just go back to the wins. Like, what are some wins? What are some of those things that went well? And then it's a shift of perspective for them where they're like, oh yeah, I guess this did go well and this went well. And it's like, okay, there's things that I can be grateful for. And then even just implementing a daily gratitude journal, write down 5 things. And you mentioned doing a challenge that for gratitude. I remember that. But I love this topic so much because it's near and dear to my heart, because I've seen how it can change people's lives of just implementing a small, tiny habit of it. Like I meet with them again and they're happier and they're better their overall well-being has improved by focusing on this. So I really love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll tap into I've had some challenges in the last, season of life, probably 6-8 months. And it is easy, as optimistic as I am, and a glass half full. When we are in positions where we do feel more defeat, discouragement, it is hard to pull from that bag of gratitude. And I've had to kind of jumpstart myself and reboot in that space, because it just writing a list of the positives that are even in the midst of those challenges does help to see, okay, there are wins going on, and having that gratefulness. And pastor that of the church that I attend, he had a kickoff for January, and one of them was every single day, one gratitude. And I've gotten behind, but sometimes it's kind of fun, because I sit down and maybe I have 5 gratitudes to get caught back up on, because days have been busy. But it really causes you to slow down and be present with what is beautiful going on in life.
Right.
It's easy for us to focus on the negative or the shortcomings that we have towards ourselves, but it's been really good for me to have that challenge every day.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just, as you say, that's one thing to think about every day and look at the difference, that can make just doing one thing every day. I mean, it's huge.
And sometimes it is just simple. Like, I'm so thankful that I have, my favorite coffee mug. I mean, doesn't have to be grand. And that's what I've learned over the last 5 months, is that it can be something so simple that really puts a smile on my face that's in my house.
Right. Exactly. Well, and you brought up a really good point in that I think a key is having it become a practice. And, whether that's one thing every day, as your pastor said, let's do this now for the month or this season, or having something that you do every day to be grateful for. And for some people, that's prayer every day. For other people, that might be a morning walk where they're in nature and they're breathing and they're being aware of the world as it is, bigger than themselves. I know as we've been traveling, another thing we've been so aware of, whether we were, hiking through Santan area near you guys, or we were in Arches National Park, or we were camping. We camped all up the California coast. And I mean, how can you not love that?
Wow. Yeah.
So, but wherever we were, just to be in nature and be aware of your surroundings like that is such a gift, first of all. But secondly, to realize that no matter what stresses we have, the natural world is here for us. And that was a real lesson for us, to kind of be reminded that, okay, there might be all these crazy things going on in our personal lives, or the world, or the country, or whatever's happening. We can sort of grab solace under a tree, or find a place where nature is not, this is pretty steady. And it particularly hit us in some of the national parks, where you're really thinking about how many millions of years this beauty has been here. For example, when we were in Zion and Bryce Canyon, and you're in Bryce Canyon, you hike down, if anybody's ever hiked down to the bottom there, and you're looking up at all the hoodoos, all the spires, and the beauty and the color, and how long this has been there. And you realize that it's okay to take that solace in nature, because this really, it hasn't changed for a long time, and it's going to be here for a long time. And for us, it was a real sense of not only gratitude, but just sort of relaxation. And so I do think for a lot of people, getting out in nature however they can, whether it's a city park they can get out into, or being in a national park, which was amazing. It gives you time to sort of reflect that these problems come and go, but some things are steady, and nature is one of those things. So I think there are a lot of ways that we can develop a practice that really helps ground us in gratitude as well.
I love that. Do you have any other ideas for different techniques that people could do on a daily basis? For example, in Arizona, it's about to be 120 degrees out. So it's going to be a little bit harder to twist people's arm to go outside and enjoy that nature at that time. But do you have any ideas for our listeners for just daily things that they could do inside?
Yeah. Well, one thing we've kind of touched on, but not completely, is actually have your own gratitude journal. So not only thinking of something every day, but keeping a journal where you are writing down, maybe before you go to bed or whenever it's convenient for you, maybe with your morning coffee, what you are grateful for at that moment. Small, it may be small like your coffee mug. That's really not small, because it's wonderful to have a beautiful coffee mug that you can drink coffee out of. And keeping that journal close by where you see it. So we know, as a professor, I know that when my students not only learn something, but when they see something and then when they physically do something with it, that's where learning really happens. And it's no different in the classroom or outside of the classroom. So same thing with keeping a journal. It's something we think about, we see the prompt, and then we write. We have the physical part of writing in it, and then we can reflect upon it and see it. So there's just so many benefits to actually keeping a journal. So that's one thing I would say is really helpful. And another thing I remember that kind of goes along with this, and I remember doing this before I turned 50. And at that point I thought, okay, and I know I'm older than you guys. So up to that point of turning 50, I thought, okay, it would be really interesting to make a list of 100 people who have positively impacted my life.
Wow.
And think about each of those people, and maybe send them a note or a text, but actually write about each of those people and how they impacted me, and think about that. And so, my first thing was to generate this long list of people who had been in my life from the early times to current day. And just generating that list of people I was grateful for really was a wonderful thing to do. And it kind of continued when I got ready to write Eat, Move, Groove. And there's an organization, just to get on a side, the Nonfiction Authors Association, that I joined. And the director there, Stephanie Chandler, in one of her trainings said, really, if you're going to write a book and try to get a book out, you need to make a list of all the people who have been part of your life through the years, kind of the same thinking. So it reminded me of that a couple of years ago when I went through some of those trainings, because all those people had an impact on you, and you could perhaps, have an impact back on them, and in gratitude, share your book, share what you're doing. And so I do think, physically making a list of all the people who have helped you in one way or another, family, friends, that's a huge thing to do, because I almost felt like it was a catharsis back when I was 50 of my mind going through all these periods of my life that I didn't take the time to be thankful for, because you're too busy.
Right.
So I think that's another way, besides the journal, say, well, okay, I'm going to go back to my childhood from the time I was born till I was 18 and left home, or whatever you did. Who were the people, the biggest impact, coaches or teachers or friends or family? And that's a wonderful thing to do.
Wow.
And you may not have 100, or you may have 20, or you may have more than 100, but just to take that time to reflect, we know that does a lot for our heart and our soul. And we know that practicing gratitude really can calm us. It can help our mental well-being. You mentioned And you mentioned kind of resetting and how important that is, especially if you're going through a time of life that's really stressful or difficult or unpredictable. I think that reset period is really important. And even before I wrote Eat, Move, Groove, I set out and had a survey of over 500 people, consumers who were interested in personal well-being. And the number one thing that came out of that survey was they wanted a book and resources that would help them reset when times got challenging. So that was the number one thing that came out of that survey.
Wow.
It's so true though, because so many people are caught up in what life demands of us, or our inability to say no. So we're doing a lot of yeses, and we've talked about that on our podcast. But I want to just go back to that 100 people, 50 people, whatever that is an eye opener for me, because I do over the years have memories of people who have really changed the game or brought something to me. I may not still talk to them today. And then there are people who taught me lessons, and whether it's an ex or a challenging job or just more turmoil in a relationship, to find gratitude even in those spaces, because I imagine as we look through our timeline, those circumstances may arise, but it's saying, what did that person teach me? Because even in that space, maybe it's teaching you to be an advocate for yourself, or teaching you to love yourself a little bit more, to not engage in something that's giving, or where they're taking. So that's a space to say, flip that script and find the gratitude within that.
Right.
Because it's there. We just have to unpack it a little bit.
I recently heard about this guy. He had an idea, and he was a professor, and he told his students to keep a challenges journal. But I don't think that was the name of it, but they would write whenever they would have a challenge in their life that occurred. And you have to leave 2 spaces, and then underneath you would put, in 3 months, I think you said 90 days, you would go back to that and you would put a reframe on it. What did you learn from it? And how did you grow from that? And I thought that was really interesting. So that kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying, Ange. Like, some of what feels like the most negative and horrible thing, once you start practicing gratitude, I feel like once those things come up again, I've noticed this for myself. Once I starting my daily journal with 5 things that I'm grateful for, I've realized that as time goes on, when challenges do arise that feel very negative in the moment, I go into it with more ease, because I remember the things that I've written in my gratitude journal, that I'm grateful that those things did happen. And because there's always something good to come up about it on the other end of it. So.
And it's really hard to see that at the time. I mean, at the time, of course, it often doesn't feel that way at all. And some of the most difficult times in our lives, as we know, boy, you wouldn't necessarily want to go back, but it is good to be aware. And Ange, like you said, I think it's really good to think back when you think of the people. Some of those people may not have been the people who were top on your list at the time, but that was a really good point, that I never really thought of. It's not just the people who maybe gave you all the kudos and the best things, but those who maybe brought some pain that you worked through to get to a different place and a different time in your life. And perspective gives us a lot of that too, doesn't it? With time. I can think of different points in my career where I ended up leaving a job or something happened. And at the time I was so frustrated because I was trying to move ahead or trying to get this program to grow and didn't get the support or whatever it was. But then, of course, you move on to something else. You think, wow, I would never have moved. When I moved to Milwaukee, I would never have moved to Milwaukee had not the work I was doing at Illinois just kind of been, I just didn't feel like I could do what needed to happen for, the groups I was working with. And so I felt frustrated to look for a new job. and that ended up being real positive, because then I was able to, build a new program and do things somewhere else. But at the time, you certainly don't see that, because you just think, why aren't people understanding? Right.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, you can't really move ahead to the next thing without leaving something else. And even for me, I didn't intend to stop full-time teaching at Milwaukee, except the fact that I just didn't have time to write the book. And I had to make a decision to say, well, I feel like this is more important, and perhaps we can reach more people with the message of Eat, Move, Groove, because the eating part too, as a dietitian, it's so important that people understand, positive eating and non-dieting, and that there's ways to take care of yourself. And I call my whole program having a framework with flexibility, because people also tell me, they really need a framework for I have this 2211 framework for eating and moving that's simple, but it's not restrictive. Right. And so how can we help people have sort of a plan and something to start with that allows them to meet our guidelines and recommendations in a way that works for them, but isn't negative and doesn't give them, we get enough negative energy coming out from everything else in our day. We don't need that in the way we think about nourishing our bodies or moving our bodies. And so, purposely I use the words eat and move as opposed to a lot of nutrition and exercise or fitness, because
welcoming words.
And most people, what we really want is people to feel empowered to move their bodies in ways that feel good to them, nourish them, they enjoy, and they will want to continue to do. Same thing with eating. How can we eat in ways that we love the foods? We can eat really healthy, but within our own parameters, and not feel restricted or dieting or feel bad or, cause any type of disordered eating or anything like that. And so when I felt so moved to write the book and to do that, I thought there's only one way I can do that, which is leaving a job I loved, but yet sometimes that's what happens in life to move forward. And so everything is a lesson, right? We continue to grow and learn as we move through life, for sure.
I had an experience where my world really did a 180 in minutes. And someone, it was intense, a lot of legal stuff outside of what I knew. And so someone said, oh, I can't imagine. Just even if you just had half of this, do you wish you had half of this? And I said, no, because I would only have half grown. So sometimes it does feel so much, even if it was something to do with a setback for your, you're working out, maybe you roll an ankle and it sets you back. But it's, if you only had things in half portions, we wouldn't be able to grow fully because we're always halved. So when something feels big, whether it's a hurdle and, I'm traveling a lot, I'm not able to cook from home, how can you expand your growth in that space to still hit it in a full space, in a full range? And that was just something that stuck with me throughout, the last 11 years of that is just, no, I want everything in full, because I want to be fully grown,
all the hurt at once. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, because it challenges us to see that we can get on the other side and can do it. It's the pat on our own back that gives us the strength to keep going, because it's us who show up every day and in your eat, in your move, and in your groove, as your book is probably, advocating in those pockets. Right.
And that sounds like everything we're talking about with gratitude, Ange. It sounds like, taking the pain and saying, well, I'm going to take it all because this is what I have, and I'm going to grow even more from that. And that's just a full, that's sort of gratitude right there that you're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you want to be grateful. know,
No.
but there's opportunities in the midst of really tough stuff that we can find those gratitudes. And to your point is, who's there for me? Who's that person to add to my list of 100 in that
Right.
space?
Right. And again, that's, sort of when Audrey and I reflect on our travels, since we just realized we put 25,000 miles on our camper van from September to now, going around the country, talking with people. And again, that gets back to the best thing that happened for us was connecting with people, reconnecting with people we've known, but connecting with all these new people. And that wasn't what I really anticipated being. I was thinking, as an educator, I'm thinking, yes, we're going to spread the news of Eat, Move, Groove, which we have, and we've sold a lot of books and all that's worked well. But the connection piece is what's been number one. And the gratitude. I think those two things have been the most important. And so that gets back to that third part of, the Eat, Move, and Groove being, if the groove part is in order, and if we're aware of how we can take care of ourselves in these maybe small but really impactful ways, then it's also easier to build in our movement. It's also easier to eat well if we're less stressed. It's easier to plan ahead and have food available and all those things, but it really has to come from nurturing your groove or your inner core first. And that's really a lesson I've learned. And I will kind of lead from that area of gratitude and connection and groove now. And so it's sort of changed how I live my life now. And that's been profound and something I didn't expect.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love this so much, Susie. This is so great. Such great knowledge for our listeners, and very actionable too. I'm feeling motivated. I want to go make my list of the 100 people right now. I think that's such an amazing idea, and such good reminders. So can you please let us know how we can find your book? You mentioned a program. Is that something that people can sign up for as well?
Yeah, they can get on my email newsletter through our website. It's just eatmovegroove.com.
We'll share it in the show notes.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We're working right now that we've gotten back home, on some online programming and courses. That's one of the goals for this summer. We're getting a lot of requests for that. And even as I go around and work with corporate or business clients on the Eat, Move, Groove concept, they're saying, this is great. This is great. Now, how can more of our team continue to do this? So we're working on that. And so you can find us on our website there. You can also follow us on Instagram or Facebook. It's at Eat, Move, Groove. And another thing we've learned on our travels is that a lot of people really want the video part. So we're really building out our YouTube channel, and that's Eat, Move, Groove. So anyone can get on the Eat, Move, Groove YouTube channel and subscribe. And we've got all of our recipes are there now. I'm very fortunate as an educator to I have about 15 interns working with me from across the country. So they've been helping with a lot of really creative stuff that we've been doing. And so, so we're kind of in the early stages where we're building out more of the programming, and I'd love to connect with you guys more. Next time we're in your area, I will reach out ahead of time so we can see you, get together in person. Because the other thing we've learned is that we know this, but travel for us is very nurturing, and seeing new places.
Claire and I can relate.
Oh yeah, yeah. Big travel girls.
Yeah. You really can't beat it. And so I'm sure we'll be back. But yeah, those would be the ways to connect. And of course, professionally, I'm on LinkedIn too, if people want to connect on LinkedIn with my name. But we love hearing from folks. We love learning about what might be missing in their own well-being journey, so that we can continue to build programming and be helpful from this holistic view of wellness. And so, yes, it's constantly moving forward, but I hope your listeners, and viewers connect and stay in touch with us too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the book is on Amazon too. So if
Okay.
they're
okay.
interested in the book, the link's on my website, but it's also on Amazon.
Well, I'm definitely going to snag that because
Great.
it is, I mean, just our conversation day is very powerful. So to have a book that really dives into that, you know, focus on those three components. I mean, it's just the way Claire and I live, you know, we
Yes.
live this
Yes.
out. And yeah, supporting everyone in this space is key.
Yes. Yes. Well, you're doing fabulous work. You know, congratulations to you both. And I really look forward to listening to more of your podcasts and learning. And, you know, we're all in this together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Us too. Well, yes, let us know when you're back in Arizona and we will get together, and everyone have an amazing day.
Thanks so much.